Greetings and aloha everyone, especially our secondary level students. I am working cooperatively with our Imagine Science team to teach some of the lessons for our science students. So today we are going to focus on the lesson called Saliva from the biology curriculum for Year 12 level. In our biology subject, there are 5 main strands that needs to be covered. But our lesson for today is selected from strand 3, which is animal biology. Our lesson will be focusing on humans, as you can see on the picture. The human body with the different parts labeling using their names. Start from the head until it reaches the knee of a human being. Inside our human body, a process called digestion occurs there. So when you see the word digestion, what do you think? Some might think it comes from the root word called digest. Yes, it is. Some people will say it's an English word. Perfect, that's right. But some might question themselves and ask, what is digestion process? So that is our first guiding question for our lesson today. What is digestion process? So here we are. Digestion process is the breaking down of food to form sugar inside the body. Remember, the starch inside the carbohydrates cannot be absorbed by our body due to its largest particles. So that's the reason why it can be broken down into sugar so the body can easily absorb them. So inside our mouth, the food we eat will be broken down into pieces, then into starch, and then to form sugar, which can easily be absorbed inside our body. Second, digestion process occurs in the digestive system of humans, and it usually starts in the mouth. As you can see the picture on this side, it is a picture of a human body with a digestive system inside. All the parts have been labeled for your understanding. But our lesson will keep focusing on where the digestion starts, which is in the mouth. Inside our mouth, there are 3 main important things that you can see. First, the teeth, which are white. The teeth cut and grind up the food into pieces. And then you can see the tongue. The tongue moves the food around the mouth. And finally, you can see the liquid flowing inside the mouth. And it is called saliva. It helps food to be prepared for swallowing. So our topic for today is called saliva. The learning objectives of our lesson. First, define saliva. Second, identify the percentage composition of saliva. Third, describe how saliva is produced. Fourth, discuss the role or function of saliva in our mouth. And in the last one, we'll carry out an experiment to show how saliva helps to digest food. First of all, what is saliva? Or what is a saliva? A saliva is a clear watery fluid or liquid produced and secreted in the mouth. As you can see the baby on the screen, he's spitting out the liquid from its mouth. So that liquid is a saliva. Sometimes we call it spit or drooling. These are some of the examples that can help us understand more about saliva. Sometimes saliva rolls down your mouth while you're sleeping, and we call it drooling when it's dripping out of your mouth. The next one, when you yawn, oh, a bit of saliva comes out of your mouth through clicking. And then, as you have seen the boy there, he's spitting out the saliva from his mouth. So that's the other way of producing saliva. Inside our saliva, it consists of 99% of water and 1% of mixed mucus, which makes saliva slippery and slimy and helps you swallow. The mixed mucus, made from the long protein molecules, mixing with the enzymes, the mucus, and so forth. On the other hand, we need to understand where the saliva produced. Do you know that? Inside our mouth, there are parts called salivary glands. So there are 3 main salivary glands. You can find the others in front of your ears, beside your cheeks. They are called parotid gland. The others are found below the jaw, and they are called submandibular gland. And the others are found under the tongue, which are called sublingual gland. And there are salivary gland ducts that helps in the production of saliva. So saliva has many functions. It is very important in our human body. First function of saliva, it helps in digestion. Saliva contains enzymes called amylase that begins the breaking down of carbohydrates, turns starch into sugar before it absorbs by the body. Another function its help in lubrication. Saliva moistens food, aiding in chewing and swallowing. Another function of saliva: it helps in oral hygiene. Saliva helps wash away food particles and bacteria, keeping the mouth clean and healthy. The fourth one, it helps when you do a speech. Saliva helps with articulation and the movement of the tongue and mouth. And the last function of a saliva, it contains antibodies that can defend our mouth from microorganisms and other protective substances that help fight off infections. So that's our lesson for today. And now we're going to have some experiments to elaborate more on our lesson and to investigate the function of saliva in our body, especially in the mouth.
Saliva, everyone. My name is Fiona, and today we're going to be doing a really exciting experiment. We're going to test what a saliva does, or what the role of saliva is in your mouth. We're going to be using some very simple materials that you can find at home. We've got water. Mixture. Then we've got a beaker here to measure our water. We've got some crushed masi in here. This is the masi that I've just crushed into this bag. And we've got some saliva, tulo, in here. And this guy here is iodine. For those of you who don't know, iodine is a very special solution that tells us whether there's masoa in our food or starch, right? So if you put this into your food and it turns a dark blue color, then it means that there is starch present in your food. So we're going to measure maybe 100 mils into this beaker. So there's a little bit much, so we can pour some. Make sure our measurements are correct so that we can get the right results. Okay, and do it again. $100 mils into the cup. Cool. So we can kind of see that there's about the same amount of water in both of these cups. And that's very important because we want to make sure that the results that we get are fair. And then I'm going to add 2 pinches of masi into this cups of water, and a pinch is just like you grab it. So 2 pinches each, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. And then you can mix it up a little bit. And obviously we're trying to test out or find out what saliva does, what's the role of it in your mouth. So for one of these, I'm going to add some saliva into the solution, into the mixture. Okay, cool. So now we're going to add iodine into both of these, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to add 6 drops into each cup. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure you close it so that no one accidentally drinks it. And then we can stir and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we can see here that the cup on my right has sort of a light grayish color, and there's on the left here, there's sort of a dark blue purpley color, right? So we can say that there's definitely starch in this cup, right? But what happened to this one? So remember, we're trying to figure out what a saliva does, right? In the masi, as we know, masi is made from flour or falau mata, and falau mata is made from wheat. And wheat has a very special energy source called starch, or a nutrient that gets absorbed into our body. The problem is starch is actually too big for your bloodstream to absorb the nutrient. So what happens is the saliva helps break down that starch into smaller molecules called a glucose, so that your body and your bloodstream can actually benefit and absorb that nutrient, right? So we know that our saliva, 70 to maybe 90% of it is made from water, but the rest are these cool guys called enzymes, right? And there are many different kinds of enzymes, but the enzyme that helps break starch into little bits called glucose is an enzyme called amylase. You can think of it like knowledge, right? If we have to learn something about a really big topic, like if your teacher asks you to go and do a research topic on Samoa. Samoa is very big. There's a language, there's a people, all these things. We have to be able to break it down so that we can understand it better. The same goes with our food, right? Our teeth helps break it down into smaller pieces, but then also the saliva and the enzymes in our saliva helps break it down into even smaller pieces, so that our body can actually benefit from the nutrients. So we can say that the saliva helps us by breaking down the food even more to speed up the process of digestion. Thank you.
Talofa lava everyone, and my name is Alo, and I will be explaining the science experiment format for you all to follow. Okay, so from our previous science experiment done earlier, wasn't that fun? I mean, to see something that was inside of us. I know it sounds simple, but it's very powerful, and that is our saliva. So what I'm going to do today is that I am going to walk with you in explaining the steps and the format for the science experiment. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do if you want to write a science experiment report is that, okay, let's see, science experiment report. Okay, note this, that for every science experiment, you should have a written report. So the first thing that you need to put down on a report is the name or the title of the science experiment. Okay, so we say the name or the title. Okay, so for example, to name the experiment that was done earlier today, we can say that the name of that experiment is saliva, or we can say the power of saliva. It's very simple and it's very clear. Okay, the second bullet point after the name and the title would be the aim. Okay, the aim, or we can say that can be the purpose. So the purpose of the experiment. Why are you doing the experiment? So these will be your findings, what you want to find out. So we can say what you want to find out. Okay, so for example, we can say something like, I want to find out how saliva breaks down starch. Or we can say, to investigate if saliva can break down food. Okay. The next one would be our hypothesis. Okay, be number 3, hypothesis. So hypothesis is defined as this will be your prediction throughout your experiment. So for example, your prediction before you do the experiment. Okay, example would be, so it's like a guessing. It's like you have to guess what you're gonna work with. So if I would guess what's gonna happen to the experiment, I will look at the aim first and see. The aim says here to investigate if saliva can break down the food. So my hypothesis would be the iodine will help the saliva break down the starch. Okay, let me write that down. Iodine solution will help saliva break down the starch. Okay, should be very precise and simple. Okay, so the next step would be the materials. So this part, you have to write all of the materials that you have used in the experiment. For example, materials, biscuits, saliva, water, and so forth. Okay, is that clear? Okay, now we move on to our next step, and that would be the procedures. Or we can say these are the steps in the experiment. So the steps should be like, for example, step 1, crush the biscuit into smaller pieces. And then the next step would be what has happened. Okay, so step 1, step 2, step 3, and then step 4. So this is where you will, put down your steps in the experiment, and then we move into the next one. So after procedures, and then we will have our results. So that's number 6. Results, as you can see. So you have options to write your results. So A, you can write it in a paragraph explaining what has happened, or you can put it in a table to organize your findings, or you can take pictures. So these are all the things and options that you would want to put your results in whatever style you want. Okay, so the next one would be your observation and discussion. Okay, so I'll write that somewhere here. This line here, and I'll write down results. So mind you, all of what your findings, your outcomes, will be under your results. Outcomes, whether you write a table, you organize them in a table or take photos of it. Okay. Okay, so discussion. So this is where you write why the results happen. Okay, so you say why this result happen. And example, we can say that the saliva helped break down the biscuit, and then we say because of the enzyme called amylase, which break the pieces apart. So under discussion, you write why this result happened, and then you try to link it to the science idea. Okay, the next one will be our conclusion. And this will be our final bullet point of your report. So your conclusion is that you write down what you have learned. So everything that you have learned from this experiment, your results, and your discussion, you make a small or short summary saying that this is what you have learned from this experiment. Okay, so this is the format that you will be following if you want to do a science experiment. And if you follow all of this, I'm sure that you will have a very clear and professional and scientific report to write. So, to this experiment, what you have learned so far from this one is that science is all around us, and it's happening all around us as well. And just know that it's also happening in our mouth. So, thank you.
And that's our lesson for today. We'll see you during our next lesson. Thank you very much. Till Fase 4.